Okay, this week's topic is on preparing for the SAT and ACT and other college entrance exams. Our presenter today is Alex Contreras. She is a student at the University of Michigan Dearborn, and she's also been helping us as, I guess, an IT expert, IT expert utilizing Zoom for all of these sessions. She helps us out with the technical stuff. And before she starts, I would just like to ask everybody to write in the chat your name so that we know that you were here, and your favorite dessert. So we're thinking about Thanksgiving, and we're thinking about the really yummy desserts that we're gonna have after Thanksgiving dinner. And so, or that you would like to have after dinner. So write your name in the chat along with your favorite dessert. And we'll give you a minute to do that. And then after that, Alex, you're welcome to start.
While we wait for everyone to start typing, would anyone like to share their background and basically why they picked this dessert? If you want, I could go first. So basically, I'm pretty basic with my desserts. So I picked donuts, as you can see. Usually back when I was in high school, we used to go to the bakery almost every Monday morning and buy some donuts and coffee. So that's why it's just a nice memory. So I enjoy getting donuts in the morning. Would anyone like to share their background, share like a fun story about their favorite dessert? Recipe, probably. Anything is fine.
I'll share. Mine is a little emotional. I'm gonna try to be strong. But so as you can see, it's cherry cheesecake. And my dad, he loved cherry cheesecake. And his birthday is December 28th. So when my grandmother would make cheesecakes from scratch, she would always make him one for his birthday. And when she passed, I took on the task of making him those cheesecakes, being the only girl, right? So I can't even think about the holidays without a cherry cheesecake. I personally like strawberry, but I am a daddy's girl to my heart. So here we are.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Would anyone else like to share before we get started?
What are we sharing?
Our favorite desserts, if you have a background, that too.
Oh, favorite dessert is cheesecake.
Oh, another one.
And my mother used to make My mother used to make a homemade cheesecake from scratch. And she got a recipe from her grandmother, and I could literally eat a whole pan of it till I get sick. My mother moved to North Carolina, so it makes it a little difficult for her to send a cheesecake through the mail. So I learned to make it myself, but it's a lot of work. And so as I've gotten older, I don't tend to eat sweets as much as I used to. So if I made a cheesecake, most of it would go to waste because I wouldn't eat a lot because I just don't eat sweets as much as I used to. But it is cheap, but still right now, I rate cheesecake as my #1 dessert. It's awesome dessert. Strawberry too. I love strawberries. Strawberry tea.
Well, I chose bread pudding. I had never had bread pudding until I was an adult. I lived down south for a bit, and it was a big dessert with, like, we'd go out to eat and all the restaurants served bread pudding, and I had no idea what it was. And the first time I had it, I fell in love with it. And I've had all different kinds. I've had chocolate bread pudding, I've had blueberry bread pudding, cinnamon bread pudding, pecan bread pudding, and it's all just amazing to me.
Thanks for sharing. That's really cool. Which one would you recommend though?
Ooh, probably just plain old regular bread pudding with caramel sauce and ice cream, like my picture.
Oh, okay.
It looks like we have a few more people joining. Maybe we can have them put their thing in the chat room. So for those of you who just joined us, we asked everyone to go into the chat room and type in what your favorite dessert is. While they're doing that, I can tell you that I have an ice cream cone behind me because I really do like ice cream, but my favorite dessert is pumpkin pie with as much whipped cream as will fit on the pie. Usually you don't see the pie because there's too much whipped cream on it. And for those of you who like cheesecake, there's a cheesecake place in New York called Junior's. Makes the best cheesecake. They've been around for like 100 years, and they do deliver. They do online, and I usually buy one at least every year. And I always get the strawberry as well. Peach cobbler.
All right. Anyone else would like to share before we get started? Once again, if you're oh, go ahead.
Hold on.
So like I was saying, if anyone else wants to share and for whatever reason your mic isn't working, feel free to put it into the chat. And yeah, I think we could just get started then.
I'm so sorry, y'all. I didn't know I wasn't on mute. My bad.
You're good. Thank you.
Antoinette, wait a minute. You said this cheesecake place was called Junior's?
Yes, I'll send you the link if you want.
Okay, please do.
The best restaurant around.
Okay, thanks.
Was that Lanesia that wanted to share? We didn't hear you.
I said, my bad. I didn't know my stuff wasn't on mute. Excuse me, my bad. I'm sorry.
But would
You're fine. Do you want to
you-
tell us your favorite dessert?
I don't know.
It's a
Probably
juice. It's a dollar.
vanilla cake.
They be real, real big.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, before we get started again, once again, anyone else like to share? Because I see some really nice backgrounds right now. But if not, that's fine.
Right. Mine's chocolate cake.
Yummy.
I don't have a good story about it. I just really like any kind of chocolate dessert.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And also someone in the chat said, what was it, vanilla ice cream? Oh, that's cool too. I'm more, yeah, like I'm also a sprinkles type of person. Like I can't have just plain ice cream.
Stephanie, I can tell you a funny story. When the iPhones first came out with Siri, you can ask Siri a question, and which she'd give you an answer. We were fooling around with it when it first came out, and my daughter asked, "What is the meaning of life?" And Siri's response was chocolate.
She's not wrong.
No, she's not wrong. All right, so we could get started now. Let me share my screen. Okay. So today we are going to cover SAT, ACT, and college placement exam readiness. Once again, my name is Alexandra Contreras. I am a U of M Dearborn student. I work here in the UTOOLS program basically as their tech support, but if you ever have any questions, you feel free to email me. So today we're just going to cover the SAT, ACT, and the college placement exam. So, what is the SAT and ACT? So, the Scholastic Assessment Test, SAT, and the American College Test, ACT, are standardized tests to measure college readiness and predict future academic success. Many universities and colleges use it as an entrance exam to make admission decisions and decide eligibility for scholarships and grants. So basically what that means is that this test kind of allows colleges to know where you're at and whether or not what you know is enough to be able to do well in the classes that the college offers. It also allows them to know whether or not you are eligible for the scholarship that those colleges, or maybe even your state, provide or have. So basically, what's the difference between the SAT and ACT? Although both tests are very similar and on how well, both tests are very similar and both measure how well you do academically, the difference is that the way that academics are measured. The ACT measures 5 sections: math, English, reading, science, reasoning, and an optional essay. The SAT measures 4 sections: reading, writing, and language, math, and an optional essay. One section of the SAT math, does not allow the use of a calculator, so if you tend to rely heavily on calculators, you might consider the ACT as a better alternative. Also, the way that both tests are scored are a bit differently, so the ACT score ranges from 1 to 36, while the SAT scores range from 400 to 1600. All right, so I'm going to show you a quick little video to kind of give you a better understanding of the difference between the two tests, because a lot of people don't seem to understand the difference between them.
Hey, I'm Greg, a sophomore at Princeton University, and today I'm going to tell you whether you should take the SAT or the ACT in 2019. Researching the differences between the SAT and the ACT before I started studying for any one test saved me hours and hours of work, allowing me to spend more time on my grades and my extracurricular activities, which ultimately got me accepted into several Ivy League colleges. If you're watching this video right now, you're probably a little confused about the differences between the SAT and the ACT. And I don't blame you. I mean, the SAT and the ACT both claim to test the same material, and it seems like colleges accept both, right? So what's the difference anyway? Well, it turns out that there are some pretty big differences between the SAT and ACT, and it's really important that you understand what those differences are so that we can minimize the time that you spend doing endless practice tests and the money that you spend on tutors, prep books, courses, all that stuff. I promise that if you just take a few minutes out of your day to watch this video and understand the concepts I'm going to share with you, you could save yourself a whole lot of stress while also maximizing your standardized test scores. So if I were you, I would start paying attention. So before I get into the differences between the SAT and the ACT, I want to just tell you this. You do not have to take both tests. Dismiss any rumors you have heard about certain colleges preferring the SAT over the ACT or the other way around. It's simply not true. In today's day and age, every college accepts the SAT and the ACT, so don't believe these myths. Now, some people who know that you only have to take one still take both because they think it will give them some bonus points with college admissions when they do near perfect on both. The truth is, if you do well on either the SAT or the ACT, the college admissions officer who's reviewing your application will tick off a little checkbox in their mind as they look at your SAT test, and then they will spend the rest of their time looking at things such as your essays, your recommendations, your college essays, the real meat of your application. When you send a high SAT score and ACT score to colleges, you're really just wasting a lot of time and energy. These tests are simply a metric that colleges use to determine whether you are academically able to handle the course load at that school. So just to recap, once you score especially well on either the SAT or the ACT, you will be done with standardized testing, I promise. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get into the first major difference between the SAT and the ACT. And that difference is pacing. In general, if you're not great with time management and you tend to not do so well under time pressure situations, the SAT may be for you. Here's why. On every SAT section, except for the writing section, you get somewhere between 60 and 90 seconds to answer each question. On the ACT, by comparison, you only get 36 to 60 seconds to answer every question for every section. So while the tests are approximately the same length, the ACT fits way more questions into that time span. Now, while time management isn't the only thing to consider when you're deciding whether to take the SAT or ACT, it can really make or break your score. So if you really struggle with time management, I would definitely recommend that you take the SAT. If you're liking this video so far, you are in luck because YouTube has this awesome feature called Newsletter to get this free PDF sent straight to you. With that, let's get into a few other factors that you want to consider when you're deciding whether to study for the SAT or the ACT. Next up is the content and the weight of the math section. The first big thing to note is that on the SAT, your math score is worth half of your total score, whereas on the ACT it's only worth 1/4. But don't let that fool you. The ACT actually tests a lot more advanced math topics than the SAT does. For example, the ACT tests matrices, logarithms, and trigonometry, none of which appear on the SAT ever. However, the ACT math questions, though they are a little more advanced in terms of the topics they cover, are very straightforward, and a lot of these questions you can sort of just plug and chug after memorizing a formula. On the other hand, SAT math questions are quite unlike anything you've seen in your math classes. This is why the SAT provides a math formula sheet at the beginning of the math section, whereas the ACT does not. So if you're very comfortable with high-level math topics and are able to compute solutions quickly, I would highly recommend that you take the ACT. On the other hand, if you have a very logical mind and you have a knack for solving riddles, or if you just haven't taken a lot of those more advanced math classes in your high school yet, the SAT might be a better fit for you. By the way, no matter what test you end up taking, I've included a bunch of helpful resources and prep books in this video's description, so go check them out. I have a section for the ACT and for the SAT. The next glaring difference between the ACT and the SAT is that the ACT has a dedicated science section, whereas the SAT does not. However, this actually doesn't matter all that much, and there are two reasons for this. First off, the ACT science section is basically like a reading part 2 or like a reading with graphs section. You are not asked explicitly about content that you've learned in your biology, chemistry, physics classes. Instead, you are tasked with reading passages about those subjects and then answering questions about what you read, very similar to the reading section. The second reason that this isn't really that big of a difference between the two tests is that the SAT reading section actually includes a fair amount of science passages with graph analysis as well. Now, granted, there are less of these scientific passages on the SAT than there are on the ACT, so if you're more comfortable with graphical analysis and things like that, I would recommend you go with the ACT. If not, stick with the SAT. Now, there is one last key difference between the SAT and the ACT. This might influence your score a lot, so listen up. The last major difference between the SAT and the ACT is the way that the reading section is structured and the types of questions that the reading section asks. The SAT reading section seems much easier at first glance. I mean, you get almost 90 seconds to answer every question. Also, the questions for each passage are asked in chronological order, whereas on the ACT they're sort of randomized. And lastly, there are a lot of evidence-based questions, so it seems like you can sort of just look in the passage and find the right answer right there. But like I said in my SAT reading tips video, which is right here, I'll link it here. If you're interested in studying for the SAT, I highly recommend you check it out. The SAT does implement a lot of tricks to get you to choose the wrong answer, and it takes a lot of practice to detect what these tricks are and which ones you are susceptible to. Switching gears to the ACT reading section does give you less time to answer each question, but like the math section, the questions are a little more straightforward and don't require you to do as much of your own analysis. So when it comes to the reading section of the SAT and ACT, if you're a super fast reader who can retain information short term, I would absolutely go with the ACT. Otherwise, if you are sort of a deep concentrator, very willing to study long hours to figure out the SAT's tricks, I would stick with the SAT. So that is all the
Okay. Let's see. All right, so before we move on to the next slide, I have a poll for you guys. And it's basically just gonna cover, it's basically a true and false type of poll. And I want you guys to do as best as you can and just answer what you do know and what you don't know. And let me see if I can find it. All right, so these are the results for our polls. For question 1, you must get a perfect score on the SAT, ACT. Most people picked false. For question 2, colleges focus more on the SAT than the ACT. Most people picked false. Question 3, you have to take both exams. Again, half of you guys picked false. For question 4, you only have one shot for the SAT and ACT. 64% picked false. For question 5, colleges only look at your SAT and ACT scores. 82% picked false. And for question 6, if I have good grades, I don't need to study for the SAT, ACT. 82 picked false. All right. Now,
Hey, I'm Greg, a sophomore.
here are basically the myths and the truths. The poll I just showed you are one of the most common myths to the SAT and ACT. So the first myth is you must get a perfect score on the SAT and ACT. The truth is less than 1% of all American students get a perfect score. So basically less than 1% of all students get a perfect score. If anything, most students usually get half of it correct, because you only need half to, great, thank you. All right, so you only need half of it to get a good score. For example, a passing score for the SAT is, the average score for the SAT, what I like to say, is 1060, and the average score for the ACT is 26. Second myth is colleges focus more on the SAT than the ACT. This is a common myth because most college preps focus more on the SAT than they do on the ACT. This is actually false because colleges look at both exams and treat both of them equally, because even though both of them are technically different exams, they both measure about the same things and can have like the exact same questions. Third myth, you have to take both exams. That, even though it is recommended to take both, because you kind of need to take both to understand where you are and which one works best with you, it's okay if you only focus on one exam and you only study for one exam, but basically just look through practice exams and kind of understand which one works well with you. It's okay if you can't take both of them or you don't have time to take both of them, just as long as you score well in one of them. That's all that a college really cares about. So the fourth myth is you only get one shot for the SAT. This is 100% false. Do not worry if you don't do well the first time you take the SAT. You can take the SAT as many times as you'd like, but beware of the price. I know, I'm not sure how many times you have to take it before you have to start paying it, but most schools and a lot of colleges do offer programs that will give you waiver fees for the SAT. So also do not worry about that either. But for the ACT, you can only take it up to 12 times. So the fifth myth is colleges only look at your SAT and ACT scores. The truth is colleges look at your grades, your extracurricular activities, and recommendation letters alongside the exam scores. So basically they're going to look at everything about you. So if you don't do very well on your SAT, ACT, that's okay, because colleges will also focus on the other things that you have done. So based on clubs you've joined, based on community service hours, based on whether or not you have teachers, professors, or, like coworkers that have given you recommendation letters, they will look at those as well. I lost my train of thought. Okay, so the final myth is if I have good grades, I don't need to study for the SAT and ACT. The truth is, No. Basically, a lot of times most schools will not, teach everything that will be on the SAT and ACT. This Because of this, even if you are a straight A student, get 4.0s, take college courses, whatever, there will be times that you will see stuff on the SAT or ACT that you've never seen before. Because of this, a lot of times the SAT will provide formulas, will provide, different answers to help you get through it. So don't freak out if you take the exam and see something you've never seen before. As long as you take practice exams beforehand, or if you study beforehand, that's all you need to worry about. So, how should I prepare? Well, like I said earlier, and like most teachers, mentors will tell you, study, 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 study. It is a fact that 100% of all test takers that study beforehand will score much better than if they didn't. Practice exams are key. If your school doesn't already, many websites online offer paper and virtual practice exams, so you can get the feel of what the exam will look like. You can also use this to time yourself so you can finish on time and the best of your ability. Pacing yourself will help you a lot during these exams. And another tip that I didn't add is that don't leave any questions blank on the exam, because even if you are running out of time and you still have a couple questions to go, do not leave those blank. Make sure those questions are filled in, because you will lose a lot more points if you leave a question blank than if you were to just guess on it. So another tip, sign up online for virtual prep courses. There are many resources across all platforms that are there to guide you on what you should study. Best part of all, although many of these are subscription-based, meaning that you have to pay a monthly fee for them, others are 100% free. So as long as you know where to look, there are dozens of resources online that are there to help you. It doesn't matter if you like to use websites, if you like to watch videos, or even if you just like to be on Instagram. There's many different resources online that will help you to take these tests. Finally, with this final tip is something that a lot of people would like to skip over, but is actually very, very important, not just for the SAT or ACT, but any exam in general. Take care of yourself. Not getting enough rest and sustenance can negatively affect your score. Give yourself enough time to prepare and to take breaks. Make sure you have a full night's rest, no late night cramming, and a big breakfast beforehand will help immensely, especially if you are someone with testing anxiety. Basically, the state of your mental health will affect your test scores. So you can stay up all night, you can stay up all week stressing about this test, but if you're someone that suffers with exam anxieties, it will probably happen that you'll blank out, that you'll be too tired to understand the test questions, you'll start freaking out, stressing. Don't worry. Give yourself time to rest. Make sure you don't wait till the last minute to start studying. Give yourself time to study, take a breather, and you'll do fine. Don't worry. I also added some resources in case you don't really know where to start looking. If you would like to take a picture, a screenshot of this, or write these down, I'll leave these on for a second. So for YouTube channels, there's Kaplan SAT and ACT Prep. There's Magoosh SAT and ACT, and then there's Khan Academy SAT. For websites, there's 1600.io, which is basically a course website that has both free courses and monthly subscription courses. If you go on there, there's different types of packs and videos. Basically, a tutor made this website and he basically goes through the entire exam, go through it, give it a watch. You don't have to do all the coursework he's done, just as long as you go through and see his videos, it'll help immensely. There's also act.org, there's Khan Academy and College Board, all of which help immensely. ACT.org specifically focuses on the ACT, while College Board focuses more on the SAT, but all of which will help you immensely on both exams. Give them a look. And then for Instagram pages, in case you're not really someone that likes YouTube channels or websites, there's SAT_ACT_prep, there's SAT_ACT_prep medians, and at the Princeton Review, all of which post daily tips and study tricks that you can that you can use to help you with all these exams. So let's just say theoretically, because I know all of you will do very, very well on your exams, but let's just say theoretically you passed the ACT and SAT, but they did not reflect well on your academic abilities. It could have been you were up all night cramming, you have testing anxiety, you didn't read the questions well, you just didn't have enough time. Is there anything you can do so colleges can put you on the right classes, on the right track? Yes, yes, there is. What is the college placement exam? The college placement test provides assessments of every incoming student's basic skill levels in mathematics, reading, and writing. This test will establish whether you enter a college math / English course, spend the semester on a remedial course of study, or place out of the initial college class in general, meaning that if you do well enough, you can skip some of these classes. So the college placement exam is an exam that a lot of colleges will require it, but you don't have to take it. But what it will do is that if on the SAT and ACT, you place into a class you feel like is too easy or doesn't reflect well on who you are, you could take the placement exam. The placement exam is specifically built to that college course. So, I mean, the college classes in general. So the difference between the college placement exam and the SAT and ACT is that the SAT and ACT focus more on a national kind of point of view, while the college placement exam will focus specifically on that college specifically. So there could be a chance that you didn't really do very well on the SAT in a specific section, but in the college placement exam, you'll do extremely well, and it's actually a lot higher in that college course. So the pros and cons for the college placement exam: the test will more accurately reflect on where you are academically in that college instead of nationally. If you do well, you can graduate earlier if you test out of classes. They are much shorter than the SAT and ACT. The only cons are, this will only reflect if you decide not to take the SAT and ACT, is that the college placement exam will not reflect on what scholarships and grants you are eligible for, and there are not as many resources for the placement exam as it varies with every college. So if you want to find resources for the college placement exam, you will have to actually go into the college website that you plan on going to find resources, or you can always make an appointment with a college advisor to help you kind of understand what you need to study for that college specific exam. Most colleges will take the Accuplacer test, but I know there are some colleges that will take something different. So make sure you make appointments with your college advisors to kind of make sure what you need to study, what type of test is going to happen, and what you will need. Right now, because of COVID-19, a lot of the placements exams are online, but you know, things can change. There might be a chance that you might do them in person. I'm not 100% sure. But again, to take the college placement exam, you'll have to make an appointment. You'll have to bring your ID, and you have to make sure bring in a clear state of mind. And please, please, please study beforehand. So this is the end of my presentation. These are our websites. And before we end, I have another poll for you guys. So like I was saying about the SAT and ACT, to kind of give you an idea of what the SAT and ACT looks like, I will share with you some practice questions that are actually on the SAT and ACT. Each year it varies, but most of them will follow this format. So
like you really want us to think right now, right?
Yep. Yep. So I want you guys to try as best as you can on these questions. These are actual questions from the SAT and ACT exam. So although each year most of the questions change, this is basically the kind of format and the type of questions you will see on these exams. So I'll give you like 5 minutes to do these. if you don't know and you need to guess, remember that is fine. Again, on the test, it is better that you guess on the questions than to leave them blank. You lose more points by leaving questions blank than to just guess.
This is very hard.
Yeah. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
I'm still on one.
Yeah, that's
Me
why.
too.
That's why they say you have to study beforehand. Even though you could be a straight A student, a lot of these questions are designed to kind of mess with you. They're designed to make you feel like, no, this isn't right. What is going on? But the whole point of this is just to mess with you. Um, that's why when they say teach yourself to pace yourself, study, you know, it's all just based on problem solving, really. It's not really based on anything you've learned in school. It's just trying to see your problem solving skills. I did want to put in an English, all of these are math, by the way. I did want to put in some English questions, but those are all based on reading passages, and I wasn't going to make you read an entire 3 pages, just to answer some questions.
I have a question while everybody's working on that. Are you allowed to bring a calculator with you to the testing?
Well, the thing about it is that yes, you are allowed to bring a calculator, but it has to be verified first, because obviously some people can study with specific some people can cheat with specific calculators, so they have to be approved. And there are I'm not sure about the ACT doesn't really care, but the SAT does have a specific section that is specifically non-calculator only. So there are a couple questions on the SAT that will require you to do the entire math by hand. That's why, like our good friend Greg said, if you're someone that relies heavily on calculators, take the ACT instead.
I have another question for you. Suppose you have an interest in foreign language, let's just say, as your college major. Do they have test sections where you can take it in French or Spanish or whatever language it is you want to major in?
Oh, I haven't looked into that. For the placement exam, yes, there are specific tests that you can take if you want to test out of specific language courses. For the SAT and ACT, no. SAT and ACT is more, once again, about like problem solving and your skills academically. I don't believe there's anything language based on the SAT. If you speak a foreign language that isn't English, they do have SAT and ACT tests for you, but the only ones that actually test your ability to speak those languages are college placement exams, though there are very specific placement exams. They're not the main ones you do they're not the entrance exams, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So if you would like to take a placement exam for a specific language, you have to personally ask and make an appointment for it. But yeah, there are tests for you if you do want to see where you are at in a language and see if you can test out of it. So like I said earlier, the average score for the SAT and ACT is 50%. Only less than 1% of the entire United States student population can get a perfect score. And even then, there have been students with perfect SAT and ACT scores that didn't get accepted to colleges because colleges also look at what other things you've been part of. They look at your, extracurricular activities. They look at, community service hours. They look at, recommendation letters. They look at your grades. They look at all sorts of things. So even though it is very important to score well if you are looking for scholarships and grants, to actually get accepted, you don't have to worry too much about the SAT and ACT. So I did notice that I didn't really cover much for college placement exams. That's because, again, I couldn't really find much about it because each college has a very different way they take it. So, and even then, like, there's not that much online to study off of the AccuPlacer test because it's just based on anything you've learned at school. So,
well, it could be just about anything. When I was in college, they my high school didn't give credit for physical education classes, so I had to take 2 physical education classes, and I took a college placement exam to test out of it. So I took a tennis class and forget what the other one was, but it was just like, so I think just that depends on every school you go to, what their requirements are for graduation. So I was like about a month before graduation when they told me that I had to have phys ed because my high school didn't have phys ed credits. So.
Interesting. Yeah, that's actually really interesting to hear because in like right now, in most high schools, like you can't graduate without phys ed. You need a phys ed credit to graduate.
Well, Alex, I'm a little bit older than you.
Just a little bit.
You probably weren't even born when I graduated.
Wait, what year did you graduate?
From college?
Yeah.
1972.
I was probably born, around there.
No, you weren't. Okay, stop torturing us. What are the answers?
All right. Because it says there's like 3 more people still taking it. And I kind of want to let them take it. Again, if you don't know, feel free to just guess. Also, Antoinette, I have a feeling that I don't even think my mom was born when you graduated.
Thanks loads. Now you're really doing it to me.
I'm sorry. No, it's because my family's very young. We're little babies, so. All right, I'm just gonna end it now. We haven't done it yet. I'm sorry. Okay, let's see here. So for number 1, a gas station sells regular gas for $2.39 per gallon and premium gas for $2.79 per gallon. If the gas station sold a total of 550 gallons of both types of gasoline in one day for a total of 1,344 with 50 cents, how many gallons of premium gasoline were sold? The correct answer is 75. Most of you got that one right. Richard, I saw that little dance of yours.
Can you post the results?
Oh, right. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, good. Okay, I think I got that one right. Yeah.
Okay, so for number 2, which of the following equals this? The correct answer is B, f of 6. Which most of you got that one right. Richard, again, getting all these questions right. Let's see. And then for number 3, the correct answer is B, 14. Not that many of you got that one right. Oh no, Richard didn't do a dance this time. Okay. All right, so for number 4, what's the greatest common factor of 42, 126, and 210? The correct answer is 42. No, Richard, it's okay. It's okay if you didn't get these right. So to give you an idea, the first 2 questions were from an SAT practice exam. The second 2 questions were from an ACT practice exam.
Wow.
So based on those 2 questions, figure out which one you did the best on, and that probably will reflect on which exam is best for you.
Okay.
So before I do the next part, what did you guys feel about that exam? Was it hard? Was it easy? What are your thoughts?
Well, I guessed the whole time, so those are my thoughts on that.
It was very hard, but I haven't been in school for 20 years, like almost 30 years. So it was very hard for me.
So yeah, that kind of lets you know what your students and your kids are taking in these SAT and ACT exams. All right. One more thing before we go. I didn't see the time. I would like to show you, because of COVID-19, a lot of people have been asking, what's going to happen with the SAT and ACT? Do I even take it? Like, what's going to happen? So let me share my screen. So this is a statement that was recently put out by College Board. Not sure, can you see my screen? All right. All right. So go all the way at the top. It says, schools continue to navigate uncertainties due to the coronavirus. Top priorities of College Board are the health and safety of students and educators. All weekend test centers must adhere to local public health guidelines and follow the College Board requirements. So basically, because of the way that this test is formatted, it has to be in person. So a lot of the way that's going to go is that you have to wear your mask. Obviously, you have to stay 6 feet apart. But the issue is a lot of test centers have closed. So you kind of have to pay attention to which test centers are open, which test centers are closed. So for here, this year, many schools and test centers will have reduced capacity because of social distancing guidelines. They may encounter unexpected closures. So the registration dates right now are August 29, September 26, October 3rd, November 7th, and December 5th for fall of 2020. I know like a lot of places will offer you a fee waiver, but you know, because of the uncertainty with the virus right now, a lot of places are experiencing closures. So make sure right now you make your appointments to take the exam. And if anything happens, you know, if anything happens, any closures, contact College Board and remake your appointment. Antoinette, do you have anything to add?
No, just other than if you have a particular college that you would like to go to or that you're applying to, you might want to find out what their policy is right now on the SAT or ACT. Some have decided that for those students graduating in 2021, they're waiving the requirement to take one of those tests, either one. But you need to check the school that you're interested in going to.
Yep. Any other questions or comments?
Perry, anything to add?
Okay.
Oh, it's great to see so many students on this call today. Thank you for showing up.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, please come back. Please come back. We have a ton of valuable information to share. We just need you guys to come back.
This is our website links. If you'd like to give us a follow on any of our social media, I'm gonna leave this up. And yeah, again, it was nice to engage with you. It was really nice to see a lot of new, beautiful faces this time. Please join us for our next session. Once again, our website info is right here. We post pretty regularly on our Facebook and Instagram, but if you want more information on UTOOLS or just any like school or SAT, ACT, or any college info, you can go into our website at umdearborn.edu. And yeah, anyone have any final thoughts, any questions?
If anyone's interested, or I don't know how many of you are seniors this year, but if you are a senior, the College Board is offering a $1,000 scholarship to the first, I think it's like 5,000 students who apply for their FAFSA application. If you want information on that, it's on our website on Facebook, and the link to that. And if you apply for your FAFSA, you're automatically getting $1,000 right up front. Well, I guess that's it. Thank you all for coming. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Someone's
Bye,
excited
guys.
for Thanksgiving.